I never thought the quiet mountain cabin my mom left me would become the battleground for one of the most unhinged HOA wars I've ever seen. But the moment Karen, yes, that kind of Karen, realized I wasn't going to follow her imaginary community rules, she snapped. And trust me, what she tried to do next could have burned everything to the ground. Literally. But what she didn't know was this. My mom wasn't just any homeowner. She was a retired attorney who left behind a legal nuke. A clause so powerful that the HOA had absolutely zero idea they were walking into a trap. And the day Karen marched up to my porch screaming, "If you won't follow HOA rules, your little firewood shack is next." She had no idea she was threatening a man protected by a law she could never beat. Before I go deeper, what would you do if someone tried to burn your property over fake HOA rules? Comment it below. And if you love justice stories like this, hit subscribe because you don't want to miss what comes next. All right, let's start from the beginning. When my mom passed away last spring, she left me her quiet cabin tucked deep in the mountains. It was peaceful, the kind of place that feels like it's hugging you whenever you step onto the old wooden porch. The only sound at night was the wind through the pines. After the funeral, I decided to stay there for a few months, to grieve, to rest, and to figure out what came next in life. What I didn't know was that trouble had already noticed me. On my third day there, a short, sharp knock rattled the cabin door. Not soft, not polite. It sounded like someone was trying to discipline the door. I opened it to find her. HOA Karen. Bobbed hair, clipboard hugged to her chest like it contained the secrets of the universe. A pinched expression like she smelled rotten meat. And a neon vest, for what reason, I still don't know. "Good morning," I said, trying to be human. "Not for long," she snapped. "Are you the new occupant of this property?" I stared at her for a second. "I'm the owner. This is my home." She squinted at the porch like she was evaluating it for crimes. "Well, then we have a lot to discuss. This cabin is under the jurisdiction of the Timber Ridge HOA, and I'm the president." That threw me. I'd been coming here since I was a kid. My mom never mentioned anything about an HOA. "My mom owned this place for 30 years. There's no HOA here." "Well," she said, raising her chin, "there is now. We formed 6 months ago, and you're already in violation." "In violation of what?" I asked, honestly confused. She pointed to the firewood stacked near the shed. "This, unregulated wood. It violates Section 3B, improper outdoor storage." It took everything in me not to laugh. "This is a cabin in the mountains. We need firewood." She scribbled something on her clipboard. "I'm issuing a preliminary warning. You have 48 hours to remove it." I didn't even respond. I just shut the door. But that was the moment Karen decided I was her enemy. Over the next week, she showed up 3 separate times. First, to tell me my mom's flower beds weren't aesthetically aligned with community guidelines. Then to tell me my porch light wasn't the correct luminosity. And finally, this was the one that made me see red, to inform me my cabin chimney was a fire hazard and she needed to have contractors inspect it for demolition. Demolition of my family's chimney, a chimney my grandfather built with his bare hands. I told her absolutely not. She leaned forward, nose almost touching mine, and whispered, "You'll regret ignoring me." That night, around 11 p.m., I heard footsteps outside. At first, I assumed it was a deer, a fox, something normal. But then I heard voices, whispering, rustling, and the smell, burning. I shot out of bed and rushed to the window. 2 figures stood near my firewood shed, flashlights off, moving slowly. One of them held something in her hand, a red gas can. My chest tightened. I grabbed my phone and bolted for the front door. "Hey!" I shouted into the darkness. "What are you doing?" The figures froze, then scrambled like cockroaches, disappearing into the trees, but I saw the hair, the bobbed outline, Karen. "He tried to burn my firewood shed." I called the sheriff immediately, but we're deep in the mountains. Response time was slow. By the time they arrived, the only thing left was the faint smell of gasoline. The deputy took my statement, but he didn't look confident. "Without video or a witness, it's going to be hard to pin this on anyone," he said. My blood boiled. I wanted justice. I wanted her exposed. But for the moment, I had nothing. Then the next morning, something happened that changed everything. I was cleaning the kitchen table, going through my mom's old paperwork, when I found a sealed envelope with my name on it. The handwriting was unmistakable. My mom's. Inside was a letter, and underneath it, a stack of documents. My mom wrote, "If anyone ever tries to enforce HOA rules on this property, read the attached. You'll be protected. Love you." Heart pounding, I opened the documents. And that's when I realized my mom had left me a legal bomb. A land use contract dating back 40 years. A county-level exemption my mom acquired during a dispute with developers. Documents showing the cabin was legally classified as a preserved heritage dwelling, immune from any HOA that attempted to form after a specific date. The HOA Karen bragged about, completely powerless here. And the best part? If they attempted to enforce rules on my cabin, I could sue them for damages. I felt my heart beat slow, turn solid, turn determined. Karen thought she was untouchable. She had no idea she just picked a fight with a lawyer's son, armed with the exact weapon she feared most, the law, and I was ready to use it. As I stepped outside, documents in hand, I suddenly heard a loud engine approaching, tires crunching gravel, doors slamming, multiple doors, police, Karen, and Karen's board members. She stormed up my porch, shouting, "You're done, I'm having your entire cabin condemned." But she didn't know I had proof. She didn't know the sheriff was already aware, and she definitely didn't know the trap she walked into. Because what happened next? Let's just say the mountains got real quiet before the storm hit. The gravel hadn't even stopped crunching under the police boots before Karen marched straight up my porch like she owned the ground beneath her feet. Behind her were two HOA board members, one tall guy with cargo shorts and a beer belly hanging over his belt, and a woman who looked like she'd been practicing her disappointed head shake in the mirror for years. The sheriff's deputy stood behind them, adjusting his vest, trying not to sigh out loud. I stepped outside with the documents in hand. Karen jabbed her finger toward my face. "You, ARE, done. I've filed for an emergency condemnation of this cabin. It's a fire hazard. An unregulated structure. You will vacate immediately." I blinked, slowly, calmly, almost too calmly. Then I held up the papers. "Read this," Karen snorted. "I don't need to read anything. I am the HOA president." "Exactly," I said, smiling, "which means you're legally obligated to understand the rules you pretend to enforce." She ripped the papers out of my hand with the aggression of someone trying to tear open a bag of chips they swore they weren't going to eat. Skimmed the first few lines and her face froze. What is this?" she whispered. The tall board guy leaned over her shoulder. That looks like a county exemption dated 1985, I nodded. "Yep, my mom fought a developer back then. The county classified this cabin as a preserved heritage dwelling. That means no HOA formed after 1985 can enforce any rules on this property." The quiet headshake lady let out a tiny gasp. That supersedes our charter." Karen didn't move. Her eyes darted across the page like she was trying to find a loophole with sheer hatred alone. No, this can't be right. This can't apply. This has to be fraud." The deputy stepped forward, arms crossed. "I already looked into it," he said. "When the owner called last night about an attempted arson." Karen stiffened. Arson? No one said anything about." The deputy raised a finger. "You were seen near his shed with a red gas can." "That is a lie," she shrieked. "I was walking my dog," the tall board guy mumbled. "You don't have a dog." She whipped her head so fast that I swear I heard her neck crack. "I could have a dog," the deputy cleared his throat. "Look, nobody is being arrested right now, but this property is exempt from your HOA, and unless you have proof of actual danger, you cannot condemn anything." Karen's mouth hung open like a cartoon character. "This is ridiculous. We have a community to protect." "From firewood?" I asked. "No." "From you." Her voice cracked at the end, almost like she realized how insane it sounded. I tilted my head. "Karen, are you seriously upset that you can't control a cabin my family has owned for decades?" She stepped toward me, eyes burning. "You don't understand what happens when people don't follow rules. Chaos, disorder, and soon your little cabin will be the reason the entire mountain goes up in flames. I'm saving everyone." "You tried to burn my shed," I said quietly. That stopped her. The deputy's eyes narrowed. Her board members shuffled backward like rats abandoning a sinking ship. Karen stammered. I didn't. He's lying. He's making that up to avoid compliance." "I saw you," I said, "and if you come onto my property again, I'll have security cameras recording every inch." The board woman whispered, "Karen, maybe let's back off." But Karen didn't back off. If anything, she doubled down. "Oh, no, she hissed. "This isn't over. If the HOA can't enforce the rules, then maybe the county can." She turned to the deputy. "I want a full investigation into this man's chimney, septic tank, firewood, and roofing. I want everything inspected." The deputy sighed. "Ma'am, that's not how this works." "Well, make it work," she screamed. The mountains echoed her voice like they were mocking her. She stomped back toward the police car, climbing in as if she was getting into a battle tank. The board members scrambled after her, not sure whether to stay or run. The deputy turned to me with a tired expression. "Look, I can't promise she's done, but you've got the legal advantage here, and if she trespasses again, call us immediately." He drove off, leaving a cloud of dust and a lingering feeling in my gut. Karen wasn't just angry, she was spiraling, and spiraling people do reckless things. The next week was eerily quiet, too quiet. Karen didn't show up. No bogus notices. No threats, no surprise inspections. Instead, the HOA started targeting my neighbors. One older couple, the Johnsons, had a yard that didn't fit aesthetic guidelines. Another guy down the road received a letter stating his boat trailer violated visibility standards. Even hikers were stopped near the woods and told they needed temporary visitor permits. Karen was trying to force everyone to see me as the problem for refusing to comply. The HOA Facebook group exploded with chaos. Neighbors arguing, screenshots, people calling Karen a tyrant, others defending her like she was the last barrier between civilization and total collapse. One late evening, I stepped outside to grab more firewood. As I reached for a log, a faint flicker caught my eye just beyond the tree line, a flashlight, moving slowly. Watching my cabin, a chill crawled down my spine. I grabbed my own flashlight and shined it in that direction. The beam hit a figure, red jacket, bobbed hair, Karen. Standing alone in the dark, just staring at me. "Karen," I shouted, "what are you doing on my property?" She didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe, just stared. Then, without a word, she walked backward into the trees, disappearing like a ghost. My skin crawled. Something was wrong. She was unraveling. That night, I slept with the documents under my pillow and my phone in my hand, because Karen looked like a woman who wasn't going to lose quietly. And I had the terrible feeling she was about to try something far worse than lighting a shed on fire. What do you think? Would you call the police again? Install cameras, confront her, tell me in the comments. The next morning, I woke up with that same uneasy feeling crawling up my spine. You ever feel watched before you even open your eyes? Like the air is too still, too heavy? That's exactly how the cabin felt. I stepped out onto the porch with a cup of coffee, trying to settle my nerves. The mountains were quiet. No wind, no birds, just silence so thick it felt like it was pressing against my skin. Then I saw it. An envelope taped to my cabin door. No stamp, no return address. Just one word written in frantic black marker. Final warning. My stomach tightened. I ripped it off and opened it. Inside was a single sheet. You are a danger to the community. Vacate immediately or consequences will follow. HOA President consequences. Last time, consequences meant trying to burn down my shed. Before I could even process it, a voice startled me from the yard. "You got one too." I turned to see Mrs. Johnson, the older woman who lived a few cabins down. She looked shaken, clutching her own notice. Her hands trembled. "Karen left it on our door before sunrise," she whispered. "She said if we keep supporting you, she'll fine us until we go bankrupt." That made my blood boil. "This is harassment," I said. "You and your husband shouldn't have to deal with this." She gave a weak smile. "We're too old to fight a woman like her, but you look like someone who can stand up for all of us." Her voice cracked. "You're the only one she's afraid of." I wasn't sure about that, but I nodded. "I'll stop her, I promise." As soon as she walked away, I stepped inside and grabbed the legal documents again. I read through them twice, confirming every clause my mom highlighted. If Karen wanted war, then fine, I'd give her one. But then my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "You think paper protects you? Watch. Your cabin tonight?" My blood ran cold. By afternoon, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. People were whispering on porches, making hushed phone calls, pointing toward the HOA office like something big was coming. And it was. Around 5 p.m., as the sun started to dip behind the mountains, a pickup truck pulled into my driveway. Not a neighbor, not the sheriff, someone worse. The county building inspector. A tall man in steel-toe boots stepped out, holding a clipboard and wearing a badge clipped to his vest. "Evening," he said. "I'm here to perform a full inspection of your cabin, ordered by the Timber Ridge HOA." Of course, Karen found her loophole. "It's illegal," I said. "This structure is exempt. County signed off 40 years ago." He shrugged tiredly. "I know, I saw the exemption, but the HOA filed a safety complaint. Legally, I have to at least check the property." I rubbed my forehead. "Fine, but you're going to see there's nothing wrong." He nodded and walked toward the porch steps, but stopped. Slowly, he crouched, running a hand along the wood beam supporting the overhang. Then his face changed. He stood up again. Did you do any recent work here?" "No, why?" He pointed at the support beam. "There's accelerant residue on this wood." My jaw clenched. "Accelerant, from Karen's attempt to burn my shed." "She tried to burn my cabin too," I whispered. The inspector exhaled sharply. "Look off the record. I've seen HOA presidents do petty things, but this is dangerous." He finished his inspection, roof, chimney, siding, firewood, everything, and concluded exactly what I expected. "Your property is perfectly safe, totally within code. In fact, your cabin is better maintained than half the homes in the county." "Can you report her?" I asked. He hesitated. "HOAs are tricky. They often act like they're above the law, but..." He pulled a small card from his pocket and handed it to me. "My sister's a lawyer, specializes in HOA abuse. If you ever want to drop a hammer on that woman, call her." I slipped the card into my pocket. A new weapon, a legal ally, and I had a feeling I'd need her soon. As the inspector drove off, I noticed something strange on the edge of my property. Fresh footprints in the dirt. Small, narrow, familiar. I followed them to the tree line. There, half buried under pine needles, was something shiny. A lighter, a blue one, with the initials KR scratched into the side. Karen Reynolds, HOA president. The fire starter wasn't even trying to hide her tracks anymore. I pocketed the lighter. This was evidence, and I knew exactly what to do next. Around 9 p.m., the mountains grew dark, too dark. I turned on the porch light, installed my security cameras, locked every door, and waited. Because Karen had warned me to watch my cabin tonight. And the sad truth, I believed her. Around midnight, I heard it again, crunching leaves, footsteps, a low whisper. My heart pounded as I grabbed my phone and crept to the window. A shadow moved near the side of the cabin, slow, deliberate. I zoomed in. Long coat, hood up, carrying something bulky. A can, a large bag. I hit record on my phone and eased toward the porch door. Then suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the woods. A flashlight beam whipped across the yard. "Hey, step away from the property." It was the sheriff's deputy. Two more officers rushed in behind him, illuminating the shadowed figure with blinding lights. The person froze like a trapped animal, then bolted into the woods. But this time, they were caught. The deputy returned moments later, dragging someone by the arm, Karen. Her face was red, hair wild, mascara running. She was shaking, not with fear, but with fury. "You don't understand," she screamed. "It's a menace. I'm protecting the community. This cabin is illegal. He is illegal." The deputy cut her off. "Ma'am, you're trespassing, and you're carrying." He lifted the can, lighter fluid. "You're lucky this didn't escalate." Karen glared at me like she wanted to rip the air out of my lungs. "You have no idea who you're dealing with," she hissed. "I will burn this place down if it's the last thing I do." Everyone went silent. The deputies froze. She had just admitted her intent in front of witnesses. I took out the lighter and held it up. "Funny," I said. "This has your initials." Karen's eyes widened. No, that's not." "Oh, it's yours," the deputy interrupted. "And combined with what you just said," he grabbed her wrist. "You're coming with us." Karen screamed, shrieking, kicking, twisting as the deputies cuffed her. "You can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president. I make the rules. I am the community." Her voice echoed through the forest until the cruiser doors slammed shut. And for the first time in weeks, the mountains felt quiet, safe, but I knew this wasn't the end. Karen wasn't just angry, she was obsessed, and obsessed people, they don't go down without a second act, and her board, they weren't going to take her arrest lightly. Something was coming, something bigger, something legal. And I had a feeling the next fight wouldn't happen in my yard, but in a courtroom. The night Karen was arrested, the entire mountain seemed to breathe again. Neighbors slept with their doors unlocked for the first time in weeks. Porch lights flickered back on. Dogs barked without someone filing a noise complaint. But peace never lasts long with people like Karen, because the very next morning chaos returned. Not from Karen herself, but from the HOA board. Around 9 a.m., I heard a line of cars pull up in front of my cabin. 5 vehicles, all shiny, all expensive. They parked in a perfect row like they practiced it. The doors opened in unison. Out stepped every board member, dressed like they were attending a funeral, black clothes, sunglasses, clipboards under their arms. They looked like a suburban squad of budget-level mobsters. The tall guy approached first, clearing his throat dramatically. "You," he boomed, "are responsible for the wrongful arrest of our beloved HOA president." I raised an eyebrow. "Your beloved HOA president tried to burn down my cabin. She was under stress," the woman beside him snapped. "You provoked her." "I provoked her by existing. By defying community standards," another chimed in. I laughed. "This isn't a community, this is the mountains." The tall guy shoved a manila envelope toward my chest. "You are hereby notified," he announced, "that the HOA is filing an injunction. We will pursue full civil action unless you retract your complaint against Karen." "Retract?" I asked, stunned. "She was caught trespassing with lighter fluid. She admitted she wanted to burn my cabin down." "That's subjective," the woman sniffed. "She said she meant it metaphorically." I stared at her. "You can't metaphorically burn a house." "Well," she murmured, "that sounds like a matter for the court." I took the envelope and opened it. Bull, all of it. The injunction wasn't even legal. They were trying to scare me with vague threats, hoping I'd fold, but I wasn't folding. "Tell Karen's lawyer to prepare," I said, "because I'll see her in court." The board gasped like I had just slapped all of them. "You can't fight the HOA?" the tall guy barked. "Watch me." They huddled together, whispering angrily, then marched back to their cars like they were storming off a middle school soccer field. But as their engines faded, something caught my eye. A figure standing behind their cars, Mrs. Johnson. She looked embarrassed, guilty almost, and approached slowly. "You should know," she said quietly. "They're planning something worse." I stepped closer. "What do you mean?" She lowered her voice. "They're holding an emergency HOA meeting tonight. Off books, no minutes, no witnesses. They want to revoke your special status and vote you into the HOA by force." My jaw dropped. "They can't do that. Legally, they can't." "I know," she whispered, "but they think if everyone votes, the county will honor it." "It doesn't work like that," I said, but she shook her head. "They don't care how it works. They care how loud they sound. Please be careful." She squeezed my arm and left. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. This wasn't over, not even close. That night, I drove down to the Timber Ridge Community Center. I didn't want to go inside. I wanted to watch from the outside. Listen, document everything. The parking lot was full. Trucks, SUVs, sedans. People streamed toward the building like sheep being herded into a slaughterhouse. I parked at the far end and crept toward the windows. Inside, the board sat at a long folding table, grim-faced. Karen's chair was empty but decorated with flowers, a get-well-soon card, and what looked like a scented candle. I almost choked. They were acting like she was a fallen hero. The tall board guy spoke first. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to discuss the hostile takeover attempt by the outsider living in the Heritage Cabin." Hostile takeover. I was living in my own home. The crowd murmured. Some nodded. Others looked confused. Then the board lady stood and slammed her clipboard down dramatically. "He is a threat to our vision of a safe, controlled community. He refuses to comply. He insulted our president. He called the police on her." Someone from the back shouted, "She tried to set a fire." The board ignored it. "He must be brought under HOA authority," she continued. "No exceptions, no exemptions, no outdated paperwork." Outdated paperwork. That paperwork could flatten their entire HOA with a single legal blow. Then someone raised their hand. Mr. Daniels, a quiet guy who lived near the lake. "Isn't his exemption legally binding? If we force him in, won't that violate county rules?" The tall guy smiled like a villain from a low-budget movie. "That's the beauty of it. If we vote him in and he refuses to comply, then the county will condemn the structure for being uncooperative. And when it's condemned, we'll have grounds to remove it." The room buzzed. "That's illegal," someone yelled. "Only if someone proves it." I clenched my fists. They weren't just trying to control me, they wanted to get rid of the cabin entirely. My mom's cabin, my childhood home, my inheritance. I pulled out my phone, recording every word through the cracked window. The board lady raised her hands. "All in favor of force enrolling the Heritage Cabin into the HOA?" Hands shot up everywhere. Dozens, maybe 50. But then a voice boomed. "You can't vote someone into an HOA they never agreed to." The room gasped. It was the building inspector, the same one who found accelerant on my porch beam. He walked through the back door, authority radiating off him like heat. "County law is clear," he continued. "A preserved dwelling cannot be altered, condemned, or annexed without direct county approval, and your HOA, it has none." The board froze. And he added, reaching into his jacket, "I received a formal complaint about this meeting. You're attempting to violate property rights and misuse county enforcement." The tall guy stuttered. "Who filed the complaint?" The inspector pointed at me. I stepped into view, arms crossed. Half the room gasped. The other half looked terrified. The tall guy blurted, You can't be here. This is a private meeting." "Actually," I said, stepping forward, "it's illegal, and I have everything recorded." I held up my phone. The board turned white. "You threat to condemn my cabin, to force enroll me, to override county law, to retaliate after Karen's arrest." Someone shouted, "This is abuse." Someone else added, "This board is crazy." The inspector nodded. "This meeting is over. Any further attempts to harass this homeowner will result in legal action. Do you understand?" The board members nodded like scolded children. But the tall guy glared at me with hatred sharp enough to cut. "This isn't over," he muttered. But he had no idea I hadn't even played my strongest card yet. The one my mom left me. The one that would end this war forever. When the illegal HOA meeting dissolved, people filtered out of the building in uneasy silence. I could see the shame on their faces, like they'd realized too late that they were following a captain steering a ship straight into an iceberg. The inspector walked beside me toward the parking lot. "You'll want to keep your phone charged," he said. "The board is scared now. Scared people do unpredictable things." "Like trying to burn down my cabin?" I muttered. He gave a grim nod. "Exactly like that." As he left, I took a deep breath of the cool mountain air and looked up at the stars. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, there was still that heaviness, the certainty that Karen wasn't finished yet. And I was right. Because the next morning, before the sun came up, I heard a noise that made my blood turn cold. A distant but unmistakable scream. Karen's scream. It echoed through the trees like an animal caught in a trap. I grabbed my jacket and ran down the dirt path toward the HOA building. Lights were on, cars were crookedly parked. People were gathered in a small crowd outside. When they saw me coming, the crowd split. Inside, sitting at a folding table in the center of the room, was Karen, not calm, not furious, not collected. No. She was shaking, wild-eyed, and sweating like someone on the edge of a breakdown. 2 officers stood near her but didn't touch her. The tall HOA guy, board members, and half the neighborhood were huddled around like they were witnessing a spectacle. Karen spotted me instantly, her pupils dilated, her fingers curled around the arms of her chair. "You," she hissed, "you ruined everything." Her voice cracked halfway through like she'd been screaming for a while. One officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, please lower your voice." "No," she shrieked. "He did this. He made me look crazy." "Lady, you did that yourself," I thought. The tall guy put a shaky hand on her shoulder. "Karen, please, maybe we should." She slapped his hand away. "Don't touch me. You let HIM do this. You let HIM embarrass me in front of everyone. I am the president." Her voice echoed off the walls. I kept my tone calm. Karen, you were arrested because you trespassed on my property with lighter fluid. I was setting a trap, she screamed. For you, for the community's safety, you're a danger, a rule breaker. She lost the word, her mouth hung open, her breathing went shallow. Mrs. Johnson whispered behind me, she's losing it. The officer cleared his throat. We came because she broke into the HOA building at 4 a.m. and started screaming for an emergency meeting. She demanded we reinstate her, the board lady added weakly, said the HOA was crumbling without her. Karen slammed her fist onto the table. Because it is, without me nothing works, without me there is no order, I exhaled slowly. Karen, you need help. Wrong thing to say. She exploded to her feet, eyes bulging with rage. Don't you dare talk down to me. You think you're protected by your mommy's little papers? You think a dead woman can save you? The room collectively inhaled in shock. My vision blurred for a second. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, but I didn't raise my voice. I stepped toward her just enough so she saw my eyes clearly. Don't ever speak about my mother again. For a moment, Karen froze, her rage faltered, her mouth twitched, then she smiled, a slow, twisted, broken smile. Oh, I see it now, she murmured. She left you a loophole, something special, something that makes you think you're above us. She leaned forward. But what happens if I find it? My stomach dropped. What happens if I dig? If I search, if I take whatever she left you and I? One of the officers touched her arm. Ma'am, that's enough. She jerked away. Then she screamed, I'm not done with you. You'll lose everything. Everything your mother left you will burn. The officers finally stepped in, taking her by both arms as she thrashed violently. Let me go. I am the authority here. I am the president of everything in this mountain. No one moved. Nobody defended her. Even her board members stood silently, faces pale. Then they led her out the door, kicking and screaming like a banshee being dragged out of hell. As the police car pulled away, the crowd outside slowly dispersed, some whispering, others shaking their heads. Mrs. Johnson approached me, voice trembling. That woman, she's not well, but she's dangerous, and she hates you more than she hates rules. I know, I said quietly. That's why I need to end this. She nodded. Then you need to take her to court, for real. I looked down at the manila envelope from yesterday, the fraudulent injunction. Then at the lighter with her initials. Then at the legal documents my mom left behind. Mom knew this was coming. She left me protection for a reason, and now it was time to use it. That afternoon, I drove down the mountain to meet the inspector's sister, the HOA abuse attorney he recommended. Her office was small but packed with filing cabinets and framed wins from past cases. She greeted me with a warm smile. You must be the cabin owner, she said. My brother told me everything. Everything, I asked. She nodded. The fire attempt, the trespassing, the HOA trying to force you in, the illegal meeting, Karen's arrest. She opened a folder and pulled out a printed county code. You have a goldmine of evidence, and that heritage exemption your mother secured, that's one of the strongest legal shields I've ever seen. I sighed with relief. So what now? She leaned forward, eyes sharp and confident. Now. We file a restraining order. We sue the HOA board for harassment. We petition to dissolve the HOA's authority over your land permanently. And if you want, we can even pursue criminal charges against Karen for attempted arson. I swallowed hard. Criminal charges. Would that ruin her? I asked. She raised an eyebrow. She tried to burn your property down. She threatened you publicly. She broke into buildings. She incited illegal votes. She stalked you. She could have killed you. I closed my eyes. She was right. Karen wasn't just annoying. She was dangerous. Do it, I said. She smiled. Good, I'll prepare everything. As I left her office, feeling lighter, empowered, finally protected, my phone buzzed, a voicemail from an unknown number. I put it to my ear. At first, I heard nothing. Then a whisper, low, raspy, unhinged. You think lawyers can save you? Watch your cabin tonight. My blood froze. Karen wasn't in jail. She was out, and she was coming. If you're ready for the next battle, the night attack, the cliffhanger, the sheriff showdown, and Karen's darkest move yet, watch your cabin tonight. I kept hearing it in her voice, hoarse, ragged, full of hatred that didn't sound human anymore. The attorney called the sheriff immediately, but even the deputy sounded uneasy. She's out on bail, he confirmed. Judge didn't know the full story when they released her. Great. The woman who tried to burn down my property twice was free to roam the mountains again. I pulled into my driveway just before sunset. The sky burned orange behind the pine trees, casting long shadows across the porch. The cabin looked peaceful, too peaceful, like the calm before a storm. I installed extra motion lights, checked the security cameras, and kept my phone in my pocket like it was a lifeline. The attorney had filed emergency restraining orders, but those wouldn't take effect until morning, which meant tonight I was alone. The darkness crept in slowly. First the sky dimmed, then the woods sank into blackness. The wind picked up, brushing through the branches like whispers. Every crackle, every soft thud, every sway of the wooden siding made my pulse jump. Around 11:17 p.m., the motion light near the shed flicked on. My heart slammed into my ribs. I grabbed the flashlight and stepped quietly onto the porch. The yard was empty. I scanned the tree line. Nothing. Then, bang, something slammed into the side of the cabin. I whipped around, shining my flashlight toward the sound. There she was, Karen, standing in the beam like a demon caught in the light, hood up, hair wild, eyes red and swollen from crying or madness, maybe both, and in her hand, a crowbar. "What do you want?" I shouted, backing toward the door. She didn't answer at first. She tilted her head, smiling in that same twisted way she had at the HOA building. "You ruined me," she whispered. "My reputation, my presidency, my life, so I'm going to ruin you." She took one slow step forward. "You think the law protects you? Your mother's papers, your camera toys?" She spat on the ground. "Nothing protects you now." My voice cracked with anger. "Get off my property, the sheriff is on the way." "Oh, I know," she hissed. "That's why I came early." Before I could react, she swung the crowbar at the porch rail, wood splintered, cracking apart. "Stop!" I barked. She swung again, smashing one of the support posts. Then she moved toward a window. I ran to block her, but she lunged, shoving me backward. I stumbled, hit the steps, and rolled hard onto the dirt. She raised the crowbar over her head. "Everything your mother built, I'll destroy it, all of it." Her voice echoed off the trees like a war cry. I scrambled to my feet, heart hammering in terror and rage. She charged at me with the crowbar, swinging wildly. That's when headlights flashed through the trees, then sirens. Sheriff's cruisers burst into the driveway like a tidal wave of light and noise. Officers jumped out, shouting commands. "Drop the weapon! Step back now!" Karen froze. For a second, she looked almost disappointed, like she wanted the confrontation to go further. Then she dropped the crowbar. It hit the ground with a cold metallic thud. Two deputies grabbed her. She didn't fight this time. She just stared at me with dead, empty eyes. "This isn't over," she whispered as they cuffed her. "It is," I said. It is." As they placed her in the back of the cruiser, she screamed at the top of her lungs, kicking, thrashing, spitting fury. "You can't win. I am the HOA. I own this mountain. This cabin should have burned when I said." The door slammed shut. The woods fell silent again. The deputy approached me. "This time she won't be released easily." I finally let out a shaky breath, adrenaline fading. "I'm pressing charges," I said. "Good," he said. "You should." The war wasn't just physical now, it was legal. And I was done running. Tomorrow everything would change. 2 weeks later, the county courthouse was packed. Neighbors filled the benches. Reporters showed up. Even hikers and local fishermen came in, whispering about the HOA woman who tried to burn a heritage cabin. Karen entered in handcuffs, escorted by 2 deputies. Her hair was brushed, clothes neat, but her eyes still wild, like embers of rage were burning just beneath the surface. She glared at me as she sat beside her attorney, a stiff, exhausted-looking man who already seemed to regret being there. My attorney leaned in. "Today we're asking for 2 things: permanent restraining order, formal charges, attempted arson, harassment, stalking, trespassing." "And the HOA?" I asked. She smiled. "We'll get to them." The judge entered, stern and calm. "Court is now in session." The hearing began with evidence. The prosecutor played the security footage of Karen lurking at night, lighter fluid in hand. The deputy testified about her threats. The inspector testified about finding accelerant on the beams. And then they played the recording from the illegal HOA meeting. The room went silent as Karen's voice filled the courtroom. "Everything he should burn, he's a danger. I'll make him pay." Gasps rippled through the benches. Karen's attorney buried his face in his hands. The judge turned to Karen. "Mrs. Reynolds, do you wish to respond?" Karen stood slowly, her smile spreading across her face like cracking ice. "Your Honor," she began, "I am not the villain here. I am the only person who cares about that mountain. That man is a threat. He undermined my authority. He embarrassed me. He ruined our community. Mrs. Reynolds," the judge snapped. "Control yourself." She pointed at me with a trembling finger. "All of this started because he refused to follow simple rules. If he had just listened to me. My client was never under the HOA," my attorney cut in. "The county exemption makes that clear." Karen laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "That exemption is fake. He probably forged it. His mother wasn't special. She didn't deserve that cabin. SHE wasn't above me." A collective gasp filled the room. Even the prosecutor blinked. The judge's face hardened. "Mrs. Reynolds, sit down." Karen didn't. She kept ranting, voice rising, eyes wild. "He thinks he won, but he did. He'll never win. That cabin should have been mine. The HOA deserved it." She tried lunging toward me before deputies grabbed her. The judge slammed the gavel. "That is enough." The courtroom froze. "Mrs. Reynolds," the judge said coldly, "based on overwhelming evidence and your own statements, this court grants a permanent restraining order against you effective immediately." Karen's knees buckled. The judge continued. "Furthermore, probable cause is established for criminal charges: attempted arson, trespassing, destruction of property, harassment, stalking, threats of bodily harm." The courtroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Karen collapsed into her chair, shaking, sobbing uncontrollably. The judge turned to her attorney. "Your client will be held pending trial." And just like that, it was over, almost. because now it was the HOA's turn. After Karen was escorted out, the judge addressed the remaining board members, who were sitting together like terrified schoolchildren waiting for detention. "Will the Timber Ridge HOA board approach?" They shuffled forward. The tall guy looked like he was about to faint. The judge held up the recording. "You participated in an illegal meeting. You discussed forced annexation of protected property. You proposed condemning a historic dwelling without authority." The board members trembled. "Do any of you deny this?" Silence. The judge sighed. "The county has already reviewed your charter. Not only did you exceed your authority, you violated county law. Your HOA is now under investigation for abuse of power." The tall guy croaked. "We didn't know." "You knew," the judge said sharply. "You ignored the exemption that was clearly filed. You harassed residents. You retaliated against a homeowner who simply lived outside your jurisdiction." Then came the hammer. "Effective immediately, Timber Ridge HOA is suspended pending full county audit. All fines, notices, and enforcement actions are nullified." The room burst into applause. Even the bailiff smiled. The board members slumped like deflated balloons. Some started crying, some started arguing, some walked out in shame. The judge looked at me next. "Mr. Carter, do you wish to file civil action against the HOA?" I paused. Neighbors held their breath. Then I nodded. "I do." The judge smiled faintly. "Understood. Your attorney may proceed." My lawyer stepped forward. "We are seeking damages for harassment, emotional distress, attempted property seizure, and misuse of authority." The tall guy whispered, "We're doomed." The board lady whispered back, "Blame Karen." But everyone knew the truth. They all enabled her. When the hearing ended, neighbors gathered around me. Some hugged me, some apologized, some thanked me for standing up to Karen when they were too afraid. Mrs. Johnson wiped her eyes. "You saved this community," she said. "No," I answered. "We saved it together." For the first time, I felt the mountains breathe again, peaceful, safe, healing, but there was still one final moment left. The ending my mom would have been proud of. A month later, spring finally settled over the mountains. Snow melted, birds returned. The cabin felt warm again, alive, like it had survived something ancient and ugly. The lawsuit against the HOA proceeded quickly. They settled, paying damages that covered every repair Karen caused, and then some. The county dissolved the HOA entirely, replacing it with a voluntary neighborhood council. People were free again. The attorney called to tell me Karen had accepted a plea deal, mandatory psychiatric treatment, probation, no contact with anyone in the community for 5 years. I didn't hate her. I actually felt pity. Somewhere along the way, the power consumed her. The rules became her identity. Control became her oxygen. Losing that broke her, but she wasn't my problem anymore. One quiet afternoon, I found myself on the porch, sitting with a cup of tea and watching the sun set between the trees. The air was clean. The woods were still. The danger was gone. I pulled out my mother's old envelope again. Her handwriting looked soft, reassuring. "If anyone ever tries to enforce HOA rules on this property, you'll be protected." She knew. She saw what was coming before I ever did. Mom always said the cabin was more than a house. It was a legacy of peace, strength, resilience, and she was right. A knock sounded softly at the bottom of the porch steps. I looked up to see Mrs. Johnson holding a pie. "We wanted to thank you," she said, "for protecting the cabin, for protecting all of us." Behind her stood dozens of neighbors, smiling, calm, free. The tall former HOA guy approached awkwardly. "We're sorry," he said quietly. "We let Karen go too far." I nodded. "Then don't let anyone like her rise again." "We won't," he promised. For the first time, I believed him. Because this wasn't the HOA anymore. It was a community. A real one. Filled with people who finally understood that rules don't matter more than humanity, and control doesn't matter more than compassion. As the neighbors shared food, stories, and laughter on the grass outside, I looked up at the cabin. Mom would have smiled. Her legacy survived. Justice won, and the mountains finally felt like home again. Before the night ended, I said quietly, almost as if she could hear me, "Thanks, Mom. Your legal bomb saved everything."